want to be honest, to know who you are when you look at yourself in the mirror, and to accept who you are and be willing to then move forward and to make the necessary changes you need to make so that your social health might bloom and blossom afterwards. Um, the first part of Proverbs 27, verse 6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, right? Well, the latter part also says, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So it's saying, faithful are the wounds of a friend. It is very important that you have these relationships. You know who your friends are, you know who some of your relatives are. When they speak, you take notice because you know that person is speaking faithfully to you and they want what's best for you. There is no malice, there's no jealousy. They really want you to grow and flourish. And so these faithful words, you take them to heart and you be honest with them, they'll be honest with you. And together, you two can grow and the foundation may be strong. Now, here I do want to mention a disclaimer. Now, if any relationship where there is intimacy, there is transparency, there is also a danger that if the relationship ever goes sour, that according to the person or even you, you might actually lash out in ways of just spewing out different secrets and different things that were shared behind closed doors with your sister, with your friend. And so just know with any relationship, even with our friendship with our sisters, that um, it's hard, that there is a danger, there's a risk with any relationship. And so even when you try to foster these relationships with one another, with our fellow sisters, just know that the enemy is very present and he wants to destroy anything that's good and growing and flourishing. So continue praying with your sisters, continue praying with your friends, and continue praying to the Lord to be strengthened in the relationships that you have and in the ones that you want. So I've mentioned 2 points so far. The next one is to take time and to make time. Friendships are nurtured in the bosom of time. I'll say that again. Friendships are nurtured in the bosom of time. No matter how long you've been friends with this girlfriend of yours, no matter how many things you've been through and continue to be through, if you guys are not spending time with each other, the relationship will die. If there's absolutely no communication. In this fast-paced life, you have to make time and take time for relationships to endure. And you know what that's like for those relationships you already have. But if you're starting out with a brand new friendship, just again be honest and open. Find out what people's different communication um, styles are like. Some people love phone calls. Some people prefer face-to-face communication that way. Some people are fine with text messaging. You know what works for you. You know what works in your relationship dynamic. So communicate about it and continue doing so. I remember years ago, way back in my life before the advent of internet, when I migrated to the United States, I connected and continued connecting with my friends that I had back in the Caribbean through snail mail. I wrote letters and they wrote letters back, and we kept communication going until we could make phone calls and had money to make phone calls. So you know what works for you, and if you don't know, ask, pray about it, ask your friend, and move on that way. And Proverbs 27:17 says, iron sharpeneth iron. So a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. I'll break that down for you. What that just means is if you are sharp, if you have a gift, if you are blessed, because the Lord has blessed each and every one of us, we all have gifts, we all have talents. Encouragement is what we all need. That's all this verse is saying. We encourage one another by sharpening one another's swords. And if you have a sword, like literal sword, and somebody else has a sword, and if you put two swords and two knives together, you know how many people used to sharpen knives that way. The same thing goes for our relationships. We sharpen one another when we do so. And so it's important that we take time and make time for one another. And finally, in this section, I just want to say the final one is learn to be friendly. In Proverbs 18:24, it says, a man or a woman that have friends must show himself friendly. It could be self explanatory. It kind of sounds simple, but seriously, if you want to have friends and if you want to be a friend, you have to know how to be friendly. To be a good friend, you have to learn the, the communication process and to know how to listen, how to look at a friend in the eye, how to put away the distractions, and to be present in the communication, to be present as you interact with someone, and to just listen, to be quiet and not speak over someone when they're speaking. So, oh, final. I have one more. Sorry about that. The final one is find a prayer partner or a mentor. That's another thing that really helps me. I have found many of my relationships that I wasn't even trying to foster grew because somebody was partnered with me as a prayer buddy, or someone needed a prayer, just needed a moment to pray, and we started to pray together. And when you pray with someone, even um, might not be consistently, but every now and then, there are ties that are made with this person. And if not prayer, having a mentor or finding a mentor, if you just have a relationship where you meet with someone at a steady intervals, then you find that you grow closer and closer with that person. So that's another way that you could actually build your sisterhood and build strong, lasting relationships for eternity. And finally, I wanted to look at the flip side of social health because I know I'm talking quite a bit about different ways about that you could grow socially and bond with other women and bond with others. But there are ways that we could actually destroy our social health that we must be very careful about. So, what I mentioned previously was not an exhaustive list. There was just a few things that worked for me. But of course, even even in even besides that, there are things, as I've mentioned, that destroy what we have built in times past. Uh, and the Lord is very interested in our relationships. I know sometimes we might be thinking and desiring um, companionship. We're desiring relationships with the opposite sex, and we want to thrive and we want to be loved. But we must not forget that we need each other as women to support each other and to lift up each other. In Psalm 37, verse 4, the Lord says, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. The desires of your heart may not only be for a man, it could also be to have female relationships. Pray about it. The Lord is intimately acquainted with our needs and our wants, and he wants to give us the desires of our hearts. But even with those desires, we must be careful again, that we must be very alert and keep our eyes wide open when it comes to things that affect and destroy those things we have built, or those things we want to build with one another. So the first thing I have is being antisocial, just for a lack of a better word, or being isolated. We all need time away from everything that's going on in the world, and um, we also need time with the Lord alone and for introspection. But sometimes, if you find yourself always isolated, always away from everybody else, always just staying with yourself and uh, just cutting off everybody and every avenue of conversing with one another, then you're actually destroying your social skills and your social health in general. God created us for communion. He created us to be with one another. And He didn't create us just to have communion with Him. He wants us also to have a horizontal relationship with one another. So please be very careful that you're not spending too much time away from everything and everyone and only time by yourself. Number two, social media. It is very ironic that platforms that use the word social are actually the same platforms that could also destroy our social health. I am not saying social health is evil. I'm not saying it's bad, but anything we overdo and anything that just absorbs all of our time and all of our money and all of our mental faculties is not good. So we have to be very careful with how much time and also the relationships we even make on social media. And if we find ourselves addicted to different platforms and different things, where we spend more time with these platforms and with different devices and less times with relationships that really matter. I don't need to go into more detail about social media, but I will just ask you all to please be careful while you have relationships online, because not everyone is honest. As you know, some people pose as different people. They may have fake pictures and fake accounts so that they may be your friends, and that sometimes they might try to steal your identity, your money, and even your man if you're not careful. And finally, the last thing I have is being distracted. That's another way of destroying your social health, because we all have cell phones. Some of us have some tablets, and there's so many distractions that are right in the palm of your hands. And if you're having a conversation with someone and they're always in their phone, their eyes are just glued to their phone, how are you sure that you're being heard? If someone is always glued, their eyes are in a book, but you're trying to talk to them, or they're always watching television, or whatever the distraction may be, it could come in many forms. That destroys a relationship because you're not connecting with this person properly. So always be careful, even um, when you're having your casual time with your friends. Put the phone down, put the distraction down, and spend time with this person. Be present in the relationship, be present in the communication, be present in the conversation, and be mindful about your body posture and your body language. So I want to stop sharing. Um, so here we are in tea time. For those of you who are new or those of you who are seasoned, this is a safe place for all of us women. This is a place where you could come and ask questions, and you could seek relationships right here. Some of us have made relationships here. Some of us are growing in our relationships here. And it may be awkward for some of us because there's so much more to this topic that I couldn't mention right now. But please, I'm available if you have questions. We actually are going to go into our questions and comments section right now. So I encourage you to be honest with yourself, know thyself, learn more about what you want, learn more about your communication styles, and be present. Put away devices that will destroy communication with one another, and continue to grow and flourish in the relationships you have, and seek new relationships with the women right here. So that's my talk for the evening. I guess, Laverne, I'm going to turn it over to you. I don't know if you want to lead out with the questions.